quite a bit about him, and his reputation precedes him. He is a major author, so of course many of us are already familiar with his work. But to introduce him to you, Dilip Sinha is a former diplomat and public administrator, and currently an independent researcher, writer, and public speaker, who was India's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva from 2012 to 2014, and a delegate based there from 1995 to 1999. He was also head of the International Organizations Division in the Ministry of External Affairs from 2010 to 2012. His tenure marked India's election to and membership of the UN Security Council for 2011 and 2012. He also participated in the climate change negotiations during this period, including the UNFCCC meetings in Cancun and Durban. This involved promoting cooperation with partner countries in organizations like BASIC on climate change and BRICS on geopolitical issues. In Geneva, he led India's representation in various UN bodies and other international organizations such as the Human Rights Council, UNCTAD, WIPO, ILO, WHO, and the South Center. Human rights and development issues were the thrust areas of Indian diplomacy during this period. He was elected Vice President of the Human Rights Council for 2014. In UNCTAD, he participated in negotiations on global economic issues, and in the South Center on promoting cooperation in the global South. Earlier, Dilip Sinha served as head of the Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran division in MEA 2005 to 2007, and in the High Commission of India in Islamabad from 1986 to 1990. In the former capacity, he organized India's assistance in the reconstruction of Afghanistan and the opening of trade routes with Pakistan. He also participated in a series of talks that took place with Pakistan during this period. He worked in the Prime Minister's office from 1991 to 1995 during the term of P.V. Narasimha Rao as deputy to his media advisor. Dilip Sinha was also ambassador to Greece from 2007 to 2010 and served as deputy head of mission in Brazil and Bangladesh. He also served in Egypt and Germany. Before joining the Indian Foreign Service in 1978, he worked in the State Bank of India. He served as chairman of the Manipur Public Service Commission from 2015 to 2016. Ambassador Sinha has authored two books: Legitimacy of Power, The Permanence of Five in the Security Council, published by the Indian Council of World Affairs, and recently, Imperial Games in Tibet, published by Pan Macmillan. Dilip Sinha holds a master's degree in political science from Patna University. He is a very impressive polyglot and conversant in German, French, and Portuguese. And we are honored, sir, to have you here with us. So, in order to express our immense gratitude, I shall ask Professor Pani Saikya to honor our guest with a little token of appreciation.
Yes, thank you.
If I may now ask our HOD, Professor Campus Verma, to kindly welcome our distinguished speaker to the department.
Ambassador Dilip Sinha and the gathered crowd here. Thank you all for taking your time out and joining us here. This is a very important talk on international relations. As you know, it is on Tibet and our equations. Probably you come to know about our equations with Tibet and China at large with this talk. And sitting here now just exactly maybe about 400 kilometers south of Lhasa, there cannot be a better place to have this talk. And we have been always thinking about the internal, what is the internal discourse going on in Tibet, in China, about the issue of Tibet's autonomy, Tibet's independence, etc. And why we are interested, but our interest is again, inversely proportionate to our understanding of that area. So with this talk today, I hope that we will come to know, I'm pretty sure that we will come to know more about what is happening in this particular region this, I welcome Ambassador Sinha to IIT Guwahati to our department, and we really appreciate you for taking your time out to be here. Thank you again, and I welcome you to our department.
So without further ado, I will now invite Ambassador Sinha to address the asymmetry between our knowledge and our interest in the topic. Just to give you what to expect, so after Ambassador Sinha speaks for a few minutes, Dr. Abhishek Kashyap and Mr. Patil Sankhya, they will take the discussion forward while the audience can gather their thoughts, and then we will open the floor to your questions and comments. And
Thank you for having me here, and I really appreciate all the students who have come here. Sorry for the recent tragedy. The fact that you have come here is really appreciate this. I'm thankful to the faculty of RIT, especially Dr. Sankhya, for inviting me here. This is the second time I'm coming to RIT Guwahati, the first one 8 years ago. And especially talk on a topic like Tibet, on which I have worked for some time, primarily because I felt that there was something missing in our understanding of our neighborhood and in our dialogue with China, that we were not giving adequate importance to Tibet, which is our largest neighbor, and a neighbor that we lost. Tibet is not merely India's largest neighbor, it is the neighbor with which we have our longest land border. Historically, now of course with Bangladesh, our land border is the longest. Historically, the longest Tibet. And most importantly, it was always the most peaceful border that we have had in our history. Very few armies have crossed this border. You can count them on the tips of your fingers of one hand. Most of the time it was monks and lamas and pilgrims and traders crossing this border. We did not even have a security guard posted anywhere there. And yet today it has become a security nightmare for India. We have close to 90,000, maybe 100,000 troops stationed there. We have spent huge amounts of money constructing roads. So it was a good thing for the development of the regions, but the fact is that it's become a security nightmare for us. And that has happened because we have lost Tibet, and Tibet has been replaced by a very aggressive China, which not only claims Tibet, but also on the basis of its claim to Tibet, claims large parts of the trans-Himalayan territory, or sub-Himalayan as we would call it, because we regard anything up to the deep into the Himalayas as Indian territory, because traditionally our people have been living there. Some places like Kailash Mansarovar have always been in the Indian psyche as part of our pilgrimage. This is an area that we have always looked at as a friendly area. The Dalai Lama, when he goes around talking, and he was talking very recently in the US in an interview to Richard Gere, and the Dalai Lama said that we look upon ourselves as students of India, and we follow the Nalanda tradition, and we have preserved Nalanda tradition, and we are propagating that in the world today. That is the kind of reverence he has to what Tibet took from India, the exchanges that took place, and we have lost this neighbor of ours because of geopolitical developments, and it was this that made me go through the research work to find out why is it that China's claim to Tibet is not questioned today. There is no country in the world that says that Tibet is a country under foreign occupation or it deserves to be independent. Some countries like the US and India have a slightly, they realize that there is something wrong in the policy they are following, but they are not able to change that policy. Now, in my book, I have not gone into the policy advice, because once I go into that area, then it very controversial areas. The first thing to do is to try and understand what is Tibet and what happened to Tibet. And that is the purpose of my book. So I'll try and go through it very quickly in about 15, 20 minutes so that you get a big, broad idea of what happened to Tibet. And then we can discuss further. This is China. And here you will see that what is called Han China is the green belt, the valleys of the three main rivers of China. This is where Chinese civilization grew, and this is what Han Chinese civilization is all about. Beyond that, to the north and to the west, are the steppes, the deserts, and the plateau of Tibet. These were always inhabited by people who were not Han Chinese, who had their own language, their culture. They were nomads, most of them, except in Tibet, where some people were settled people. And this was the area from where, and these were all people the Chinese called barbarians. And the pressure in their Chinese history was always of invasions from these areas into China, influx of people into China. And if you know the Great Wall of China, which is just around Beijing, just further north of the Yellow River, that Great Wall was built by China to protect itself from the Mongols. Now, in the recent Chinese history for the last, let's say, 600, 800 years, you have three major phases. Starting with the Mongol conquest of China in the 13th century, then we come to, which lasted about 1 century. This was the grandson of Genghis Khan. Then we had a Han Chinese dynasty called the Ming dynasty, which ruled for about 250 years. Then they were overthrown by a Manchu dynasty. The Manchus lived north in Manchuria, which is now, of course, claimed that China as a part of China. So you had these Mongols, the Manchus coming and invading China, and the Tibetans also. There was a time in the 8th century AD when the Tibetans also were a very powerful kingdom, and they had also attacked China, and they had attacked the capital of China, Chamlan, in 7th, 8th century, and plundered the capital. So China has faced this problem of invasions from these places. So in the Chinese psyche, they think that these areas should always be controlled by China. If they don't control them, then they will come and invade China. So that is the situation. This is a map of China. You'll see in the Xizang, which is the new name that China has given for Tibet. Now, Tibet in China is called the Tibet Autonomous Region, but increasingly now China calls Tibet Xizang. Xizang is a Chinese name for Tibet, which they have invented. The Tibetans had never heard this word before, but the Chinese are now using this name, and they are trying to ensure that everybody else uses this name. Now, even this Xizang that China calls is only about half of what Tibet claims is the Tibetan region of China, because towards the northeast and towards the east of Tibet, there are large areas which have been annexed by Tibet in the neighboring provinces. So while Tibet says that its area is 2.5 million square kilometers, the area of Xizang is only about 1.2 million square kilometers. The population similarly is much smaller here. But there are pockets of Tibetan culture and Tibetan people living in the neighboring provinces. Tibet, as you know, is a very high elevation of having 2,000 feet. It's a very important source of water, of important minerals. Now, this is where I bring on this question of how did we lose this neighbor? And we lost it to a point where we don't have Tibet as a neighbor, we have China as a neighbor. So what was an India-Tibet border has now become an India-China border. Equally with that is, why is it that this neighbor was important for India, or is important for India, is that for three main reasons, I would say. One is that while China has annexed Tibet, the people of Tibet have not accepted Chinese rule, and there is strong resentment against that. And whenever there is any protest by Tibetans, either inside Tibet or outside Tibet, there are about 150,000 Tibetans who live in exile. China suspects that India is behind that. And even when China invaded India in 1962, not one of the reasons, the main reason at that time was that India had given we have always felt that China has forgotten about that, that this is the Dalai Lama's presence in India does not include China. The fact is, everything irritates China. When the Dalai Lama goes to the US, China protests. When he opens his mouth, China protests. When he travels to Arunachal Pradesh, China protests. When somebody goes and meets the Dalai Lama in Dharamshala, China protests. So for China, it's a very important thing because they feel that the Dalai Lama, as long as he's around and the people respect him, the people do not accept Chinese rule. So whenever there is protest by Tibetans, China suspects that India is behind that. And that makes for a lack of trust in India-China relations. Then China claims a lot of Indian territory that has traditionally been either Buddhist or they have revered the Dalai Lama. Now, it did not matter earlier whether a person sitting in Tawang or sitting in anywhere in India, even sitting in Nalanda, revered the Dalai Lama. We all revered him. But that did not mean that there was any security problem for India. But now it has become a security problem. When China claims Ladakh or Arunachal Pradesh or any other part of India, then it becomes a security issue for us. So, and China claims these territories based upon its claim to Tibet. And then, of course, is the environmental plan. That 4 of our major rivers come from Tibet. And China refuses to accept even an elementary thing like sharing hydrological data. For the last 4 years, it has stopped sharing hydrological data with us. So, these 3-4 factors are extremely important in our trying to understand why is it that our relations with China continue to be so tense, even though we have no desire, no intention of invading Tibet or throwing the Chinese out of Tibet. But China still does not trust us in Tibet. What is India's policy on Tibet? India's policy has, from the very beginning, has been that we accept Chinese suzerainty over Tibet. Suzerainty and sovereignty for students of political science, I will not go into them, there is a slight difference. India feels that suzerainty means that Tibet enjoys autonomy. But the fact remains that autonomy is not defined in international relations, and therefore, once you accept that Tibet is a part of China, then it is a part of China. And we cannot say how much autonomy Tibet should have or should not have. So that is our policy. That is more or less the policy of the US policy. I'll come to that a little while later. The other countries in the world just simply accept that Tibet belongs to China. Now here is a map that I got, which is a map that was published in India soon after independence. This is a map published by the Home Ministry, which is all things that people keep talking about in India. But this is a map released in 1949 and 1950, and you will notice that the border to Tibet in Jammu, Kashmir, Uttarakhand and Himachal is not demarcated. Only the border in Assam, what was Assam at that time, now of course it is Arunachal Pradesh, was demarcated as the McMahon line, which was drawn up in 1914, if not that. But there was no border given in the, and this is the point that has been made by many writers in India, that India did not in 1950 have a clear idea of where the border was, and out of the blue, later on India drew the lines, and therefore India was wrong. And people like Neville Maxwell and many other writers, even some Indian writers have said that. But the fact is that, and one of the things that I have not been able to put in map is that there were maps earlier drawn by the British, which clearly demarcated not only Aksai Chin as part of India, but even north of the Karakoram Pass. And the border along the Uttarakhand and Himachal was also fairly well understood, because there were many treaties signed by Indian rulers, the Maharaja of Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir, one of the rulers in Himachal, then some other sites in Uttarakhand, which made it very clear that there was a clear border line along this area. And there was never any Chinese army in this region until 1892, in fact much later. In fact, aside from the Chinese did not move in until after 1951. So it is Chinese army that has not been there. China has never had any presence in this region. But nevertheless, the fact that we had drawn this map and published it meant that we had weakened our position, at least in some form of negotiation. Although at that time, to be fair to the Home Ministry, they were essentially trying to show how the integration of the states had taken place. They were not so worried about the border with Tibet, because they never regarded the border as being a matter of dispute. obvious that it would just be written in market. Now here I'll just run through very closely how Tibet is linked with India. As you all know, Buddhism traveled from India to Tibet. Apart from Buddhism, the Tibetan script also went from India to Tibet. If you look at the Tibetan script, it is exactly like our Indian scripts, where you have exactly the same way, structured the same manner, written in very similar ways. You can learn the Tibetan script in a matter of half an hour, 1 hour. The script was devised by Tibetans who came to India, learned Sanskrit and Pali, and they devised a script based upon the late Brahmi script in the Gupta period. Now, the Chinese today claim that Tibetan is belongs to a Sino-Tibetan family. But there's no thing as a Sino-Tibetan family. The Tibetan language has nothing to do with Chinese language. The two are completely different. Tibetan, in fact, belongs to what's called a Tibeto-Burman family. People of Sikkim and Bhutan, they can understand Tibetan reasonably well. And there are certain communities in the northeast of India which also speak languages belonging to the Tibeto-Burman family, which are very similar to Tibetan. So this is another family of languages rather than of the Sino-Tibetan thing. But the Chinese insist that it is a family called Sino-Tibetan family to which Tibetan belongs, to assert their claim to. But certainly in the script they cannot claim anything because the Chinese, as you know, is not even alphabetical. It is a spectrographic or ideogrammatic script, whereas Tibetan is a script based upon the old Brahmi script. Tibetan medicine is extremely popular in India today. There have been some very good Tibetan doctors practicing Tibetan medicine. I'm sure there must be in Guwahati also some Tibetan medicine doctors. Tibetan medicine was taken largely from Ayurvedic books in India, where people came and studied, translated these texts into Tibetan. And in fact, today probably you'll find Ayurvedic medicine better preserved in Tibet on the Tibetan medicine form than in India, because they're putting a lot of effort to protect the knowledge that they acquired from here. So this is the kind of attachment that Tibet had with India. When the Nalanda University was set on fire in late 12th century, many books from Nalanda were taken by monks across to Tibet and they were preserved there, Sanskrit and Pali books. And it was only in the 20th century that one of the Indians called Sankrityan, Mahapali Sankrityan, who went to Tibet, traveled several times, and he brought back a lot of those manuscripts. And those manuscripts are now preserved in India, mercifully, because in the Cultural Revolution many manuscripts were destroyed in Tibet. So you have this thing that when India was in trouble, manuscripts went to Tibet. When Tibet was in trouble, manuscripts went to India. Civil Dalai Lama, whenever China invaded twice Tibet, I'll come to that, but I just mentioned this. In 1910, Chinese forces attacked Lhasa. The 13th Dalai Lama, where did he flee? He fled to India. In 1950, when China attacked, and the 14th Dalai Lama, where did he flee? He fled to India. When the British attacked Tibet in 1904, the 13th Dalai Lama fled, but didn't flee to China. He fled to Mongolia. Because obviously he felt closer to Mongolia than to China. That is the kind of relationship you have. That India, they did not hesitate to come to India, and they knew that we can shelter here. But when the 13th Dalai Lama was in trouble in 1904, he fled to Mongolia. And he stayed there, went to China very briefly. In the history of Tibet, very briefly, Tibet was independent, had a very long dynasty called the Yavnu dynasty. Then the Mongols came and they attacked and they conquered. This was the grandson of Genghis Khan. And then a relationship started between Mongols and the Tibetans. And then in the 16th century, 1578, so almost 2 centuries after the Mongols had conquered, the Mongols initially had conquered China also, and they ruled over China and Tibet for about 100 years. Then the Chinese threw out the Mongols, and the Mongols were pushed back into Mongolia. And they were divided in various principalities. One of those chieftains of the Dalai Lama, of the was called Altan Khan, he wanted to establish his authority among the Mongols. So he invited the head of the Gelug sect, the Lama, who was the head of the Gelug sect. The Gelug sect is one of the 4 major schools of Buddhism in Tibet. And the head was invited to Hohhot, which was the capital at the time of Altan Khan. And the Altan Khan conferred the title of Dalai Lama on this head of the Gelug sect, person called Sunan Gyatso. Dalai means ocean in Mongolia, so he was given the title of Ocean of Knowledge. And the Dalai Lama in turn conferred on Altan Khan the recognition that he was an incarnation of Kublai Khan. Now Kublai Khan was the Mongol ruler who had conquered China and ruled over China. So for the Mongols, Genghis Khan of course was the ultimate Khan, and Kublai Khan was also a very important Khan because he also had a huge empire. So to be regarded as the incarnation of Kublai Khan was a great thing for Altan Khan. So these two got into this arrangement of conferring degrees upon each other to increase each other. So for the Mongols, Genghis was the Dalai Lama, and his Gelug sect became more important because of the Mongol help. The Neighbour in China the main state of the Mongols. So these two got into this arrangement, and then they were overthrown by another tribe from the north, the Mongols. So far in the northeast, Genghis was the Dalai Lama. They invaded towards his Gelug sect. And they then wanted to defeat the Mongols. Neighbour in China related to the Mongols, they were also the rivals of the Mongols. So the first thing they wanted to do was to conquer all the Mongol areas. And to conquer the Mongol areas, they had to treat they inflicted because they were intellectual knowledge and Mongols respected. And they didn't want to defeat the Mongols. So the first thing the Mongols did, even before they attacked Mongolia and the first thing was to start attacking all the Mongols throughout the Mongols from Tibet. This happened in 1720. They expect the Mongols, and they then started ruling over Tibet. This was very mild. They posted a man called Dilip, who was a high official, business of Manchu, never a high official, who came in Lhasa, and his primary job was to ensure that the Dalai Lama remained in power. His authority was there, and the Dalai Lama also did not mind the presence of the Empire because he didn't have definitely religious and his primary now here I see on the man of the 18th century, not also a critical point about Tibet. That is because the 19th century, when 2 other imperial powers, Russia and Britain, start taking lessons from now, Tibet, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, that is Central Asia. First the Russians came in, the Chinese were already present in Central Asia. By the middle of 19th century, the Chinese Empire had become Tibet, so therefore there are a lot of overlaps. Because the Europeans started concessions, Han Chinese had overtaken in the Manchu. The Chinese were already present. When the Chinese Empire was about to collapse, but the British and the Russians were both sides, the Chinese Empire collapsed. Then the other side, the other country would benefit most. So Russia did not feel comfortable that they would get all of China, all of Tibet. And Britain feared Russia would take most of China if China collapsed. So there was a very interesting event taking place in China. Around 1860, Britain and Russia started helping the Manchus overcome their civil war, their rebellion against the Chinese, crush that. And they promoted the Chinese Empire and they established it. And of course they kept exploiting it also. They would take money out of China. They would ensure that the Manchus invaded civil war, their rebellion against the Chinese. This was the imperial gift that not only took place, they promoted China with impacted because Tibet was virtually autonomous. And in around 1901, the against Tibet for having invaded Tibet, and they protested, as did the French and other European powers. So Britain had to withdraw from Tibet immediately. And soon after that, Russia made a raid on Britain, and they came to an agreement for anti-Russian raid against Tibet 4 years after they agreed to draw a frontier between the Russian Empire and the British. The British had the seaside area on India and from the north from the land side. In this broad agreement, the fate of Tibet was also decided. It was that Tibet would be under Chinese suzerainty because they want that if Tibet was independent, then Russia feared Britain would attack and hand feared Russia would attack. So it was very difficult to had even the Chinese empire. And Britain was not allowed to maintain an office in Lhasa, which is a trade center, so that trade could take place. And they were not allowed to take on the Chinese was independent, there was a men, etc. Russia was so this was a basic agreement between Britain and Russia, which internationally recognized Tibet as being under Chinese suzerainty, and both Britain and China continued to honor this agreement throughout this period. So at a very tumultuous period, it was 1970 this agreement took place, and internationally, one thing that happened was that when Britain invaded in 1994, all the 13 Dalai invaded democracy in India. There was no political Tibet. And China took full control of the and they appointed a very strong governor in Sichuan province, who then invaded Lhasa. And he was a Han Chinese, not a Manchu. So there was a strong difference between the Manchu and Buddhists. So no matter what, they helped the lamas and China, they were so even though they were ruling over Tibet, relations between Tibet and Manchu were generally against the invaded Lhasa. But the Zhao Fen was a Han Chinese in Lhasa. He launched a massive campaign of pushing the people. So no matter what, and he was called the Butcher, Zhao Fen. Mercifully, what happened was that the war did not last and relations were very dynasty itself collapsed. China went into a chaotic state. And Zhao Fen was killed. His only soldiers were butchered. And the Chinese troops were then controlled by the Tibetans. The Tibetans were taken away and then they were sent back to China. This is an interesting photograph that I managed to China, Chinese troops going back. Now, and Zhao Fen was because the soldiers were loyal to the Chinese sailors going to India. So the British allowed these Chinese troops to come into India. They sailed through to China from here, and some of them stayed back in India. So this was the 19th and the think that I made then and this got the British worried again, because if Tibet became independent, then again the Russians would come back. And this was a time when in Europe tensions between the Air Force was starting. So the British immediately decided that it is time to reassert Chinese authority on this Tibet as a breaker. So they immediately called a Chinese representative and went out and the Russians for talks. China at that time was in the state of Sinha. There were two governments, one in Beijing and one in Nanjing. Nanjing was the Kuomintang, the nationalist state, and in Beijing was a warlord called Yuan Shikai. So they immediately, the Americans had recognized the government of Nanjing. The British recognized the government in Beijing, asked us in the China, came down to area, and talks took place, and talks didn't succeed. But Tibet was still asked to affirm Chinese suzerainty. So although Tibet was participating as a high contracting party, doesn't recognize the sovereignty of the country. He says that the high contracting party is the term that he uses no longer, but the earlier days. Tibet participated as a high contracting party, as an equal of China. Although Tibet recognized Chinese sovereignty in 354. But China did not sign the agreement because they disagreed on the border between Tibet and China. Because Tibet and China were also fighting wars on the border. But what Britain did was it managed to get Tibet to agree to an agreement in Assam, but that time had not been and when Chow Il-feng was fighting last time, some of his troops had come into the areas that is now called Arunachal Pradesh across what Britain thought was the watershed. But Britain was not very happy with that. So they wanted to have a land. So they drew broadly what they thought was the watershed and Tibet. As for the Kakapur and Chow, China was not recognized because they said that if Tibet was the Chinese sovereignty, then it had no right to stop. Probably meanwhile, Tibet became independent. The Chinese Amman was, as the Chinese troops were shown, Chinese Amman was thrown out. And the 13th Dalai Lama went to order circumstances. But he died in China. When he died, China then tried to reassert its authority. It sent a representative to Lhasa, who came and participated. There was an enthronement ceremony of the 14th Chinese party. Chinese records state that the Chinese representative came and he presided over the ceremony. And he sanctified or recognized the Dalai Lama, which was absolute nonsense because the Dalai Lama had been selected by the Tibetans in Lhasa, by the monastery people. And the Chinese also say that they had tried to Dalai Lama, which again was a ceremony because most of the Chinese already from here they would, which was absolutely last time. This was a short time, but that's how Chinese write their history. So this was the situation. Then in the Civil War in China, and soon after that, China invaded Tibet. Tibet appealed to the United Nations for help. The UN met, General Assembly discussed the matter, and India felt that there was peace talks taking place between Tibet and the Civil War in China. The United Nations different, and motion was sharp, and invaded Tibet. Then Tibet missed one. In 1951, the Dalai Lama realized he was not getting any international help, so he agreed to an agreement with China for the 17th Tibet and Tibet recognized Chinese sovereignty, but China began to respect culture and religion of China, including very powerful. So the Dalai Lama then went back to stayed in China. He had invested China in before, but by the late 1950s, he was crashed in Tibet against Chinese. China in between India and China also signed this culture and treaty agreement in the heyday of the but in 1959, also in 1958, relations were so good that Mr. Nehru, when he was first paid to go to Bhutan, he actually went through Tibet. So he went from Sikkim, crossed over the Solar Pass, and he went to the Shangri Valley, and then from Shangri Valley he went to Bhutan. He spent in India and China also, I mean, Tibet Church, and this is the heyday of faith and this was high up was but in 1959, also in 1959, relations were so good that flying from the Dalai Lama, soon after he fled China, he denounced the 1951 agreement, and then China was first receiving him in 1959. So that was the end. He took asylum in India. The Tibetan refugees came to India. There are more than 50 Tibetan refugees all over the world. In India, Nepal, and the US. They have formed a Tibetan center. Very briefly, what is China's claim to Tibet? The Chinese employees themselves, they say Tibet is a part of China. But if you ask them, when did Tibet become part of China? You find that they different. Some say during the Mongol period, some say during the Manchu period, some say during the Tang period, which was earlier the 8th century. And nowadays the British embassy, so the Chinese embassy, what is China? China says that Tibet is a part of Chinese ancient times. So This is just a data that China just before China invaded India. He wrote a political documents saying that India is promoting insurgency in China and India is supporting the Dalai Lama. India is giving shelter to the Dalai Lama. So this summarizes the Chinese distrust of India and China's attack with the Dalai Lama. China is now building villages around modern villages around the border with India, where they are stationing people whose life is completely subsidized. If they are on the border, they are subsidized 100%. If they are slightly away from the border, they are less subsidized. They are also subsidized by China. This summarizes the event. China is also called the China Himalayan Forum. It is trying to get countries in the region to come and cooperate with China on the Himalayan region. But India is not stationed in the center, so they must be able to go. If they are on the border, they are Tibet is an exile, very briefly, they are lives in India. No country recognizes it as a government in exile. China has offices in many countries in the world. It is funded by various governments, international social cooperation with China on refugees. They are working with Pakistan. India also gives them assistance. The Dalai Lama has some kind of where he gave up all his political powers. He was into no countries, so he's now here spiritually and no longer has any political authority. But obviously the issue of his thank you for your patient listening. India also gives
Should I use this?
No,
Yeah, possibly some issue with the mic. This one seems to be working, but this one is not. We can also possibly pass it along when we have questions. Thanks a lot for the discussion, and I read the book and I quite enjoyed it. I have, some of the things that you have covered. I'll restrict myself to 2 points. The first has to do with these the knowledge claims that seem to be used to further these geopolitical ambitions of the different parties involved. So, of course, you discussed about how China these days calls Tibetan the Mongol chieftain was seen as an incarnation of. So it seems that some epistemic claims are being made, some knowledge claims are being made, and they are being further to, as it were, further these geopolitical motives. You also discussed in the book how Russia and Britain they made their forays in Central Asia, guys to these ambitions. And I was wondering how, if you could tell a bit, because a lot of us are researchers over here, I was wondering if you could tell us how do you see the relation between this knowledge production and the political claims that get made you face. And of course, but as still conscientious researchers, what kind of topics could have a bearing on these geopolitical questions that could be appealing to how human or otherwise? So really, the relation between geopolitical maneuvers and epistemic authority. How do you, as the method that you employ in this book, the reliance on archives to flesh out these shifts in political contestations around the region. So, to take an example, which you also mentioned in your book, the region between Kulun Shah and Nagaram, the Britishers were kind of apprehensive whether they should seek control entirely to China or whether they should not be exert proper political control there so that we could keep Russia away. So you rely on archives that talk about government missives to substantiate things. But you even looking in contemporary times, a lot of political decisions, they are, if not the written in late 19th century, which is where these incidents are happening, was a democracy. Possibly suffrage was not extended to everyone, but it was still a democracy. So I was wondering if in light of your archival work, did you encounter substantial body of data looking to talk about the popular opinion, the public opinion on these issues? Because today when we talk about written kind of action as well, this also becomes something that moves publicly. So did you in course of your research also find, you do mention newspaper reports, for example, when you say that when the Frenchers had to come back from teaching in the 19th century, it was seen as a debacle akin to the First World War. So, but do you see find data to substantiate the popular opinion in England on the Tibet issue? Whereas you have discussed the establishment, the British political establishment of the occupation, you also have some information on public opinion.
Well, in terms of the areas of research that we look at, is Chinese claim of Tibet always having been a part of China. I went to some essentially Chinese sources, some Tibetan sources. These are secondary sources. I don't know either Tibetan or Chinese as languages. So I'm not in a position to read the original documents. So I have depended upon other experts who have areas for their opinion. Now, from the point of language, Tibetan family of languages, this is completely untenable as a linguist, but I'm not a linguist, so it is important for linguists to understand and deal with this theory. Similarly, Buddhism. Now, China insists that it's almost trying to develop this theory that Buddhism is a Chinese religion. Other very soon it may probably start debating that Buddha was born. Now, my family is in China, and so I belong to that place. That is actually Chinese. So that again, because I'm not a Xi Jinping, in fact said somewhere that Buddhism must have Chinese characteristics. So in China, some books have been converted. Now China invented to the Chinese teachings. All over China, you will find inscriptions in Sanskrit. In Eastern China is not mentioned about it at all. So we need to keep these things alive. So that again, because they are existed within India and these regions. The rulers of Yunnan, for example, Yunnan is China. They have been converted next to Myanmar, to the northeast. And it is actually an extension of all over China. The rulers of Yunnan at one time called their King Ashok. And that is the kind of reference that they had with India. And yet we don't hear of it, we don't know about it. And this idea of the flying and some of these things, Burmese related to the Myanmarese history, Burmese history. And in his book that I found this information about how Yunnan especially to China. So these are things that we need to look at historically. Ensure that this data is one of the things that the US law in 2024, the most recent Tibet law, that is the act the US has passed. One of the provisions is that the US government must conduct Chinese from China on Tibet. Because China is trying to change Tibet obviously. And while for America is a distant country, for us it is our history. So we have to do research this issue that we can. The other thing is that ensure that we also made us equal. In China, you have the Manchus, the Mongols, the Tibetans. These are not Han Chinese. And the relations are also different. The Mongols and the Tibetans have a different kind of relationship. In 1913, when the 13th Dalai Lama was declared independent, the first thing he did was to sign an agreement with Mongolia. And the Mongolian rulers were also declared independence around the same time because the Manchu dynasty had collapsed in China. The two of them signed a treaty to support each other and saying that we are Buddhist brothers and therefore we must help each other against foreign occupation, against foreign occupation. So that was the kind of action that the Han Chinese was the Mongols. Similar relation, the Manchus. The Manchus, as I mentioned, they have Amman in Lhasa. Now the Amman was a kind of official. He was halfway between the viceroy and an ambassador. He had some authority. But the Manchus always appointed the Manchu as an Amman. Because the Manchus were still close to the Japanese, so they had a religious linkage. Not the Han Chinese. And I wanted to find out when was the first Han Chinese appointed as the Amman in Lhasa. I know, for example, that Chow Irfan, the butcher, he was a Han Chinese. And he came his way detective act towards the Tibetans. But whether there was an earlier Amman who was also Han Chinese, I don't know. Yeah, these are things that need further research to establish that if the Tibetans accepted Chinese rule in the Manchu period, that was for a different reason. Like when the Han Chinese Dalai Lama was very powerful and influential Dalai Lama, he was invited by the Manchu emperor. Soon after the Manchus conquered China, they invited the Dalai Lama to Beijing. He was a Manchu. The Dalai Lama, when he reached Beijing, the Chinese, of course, came that they went to pay obeisance to the Manchu emperor. The Chinese, the Manchu dynasty was called Qing dynasty, Qing. He was a picture. So Chinese, of course, say the fifth Dalai Lama went to pay homage to the Chinese emperor. But the fact is that the Chinese, the Manchu emperor, had got a palace built for the fifth Dalai Lama. And the fifth Dalai Lama helped the Manchus again develop the conquest of the Chinese translations of the texts into Manchu language. So he was very Chinese, of course, not as a vassal. You don't make a house of so this relationship also needs to be pointed out. China cannot claim that Genghis Khan was a Chinese, Khan was a Chinese, Chinese. So this needs to be Kundum Chan, of course, that is another area that I am touched upon. I want to fix it up. I want to look at area of East Turkestan also. East Turkestan being the area just above what China was Xinjiang. Now, Xinjiang is another area that is India's northern neighbors. If you look at India's northern neighbors, one is East Turkestan, over the tongue, and the other is Tibet, over the rest of India. These are India's neighbors. Then China. Now, in the case of the Tibetans have been largely very peaceful people. China was quite happy to accept Manchu's governance as an Manchu. Manchu said we have suzerainty over Tibet. Now, and if you look at East Asia's relations with China, we find a very, very difficult relationship. East Turkestan was captured by China in 20 years, Tibet we captured the rest of it. In 1729, in 1759, now we captured East Turkestan. But East Turkestan kept rebelling against even Manchu, because one of the reasons was that East Turkestan by this time had become Muslim, and the Manchus were Buddhists. So you had that difference. Linguistically also there were quite different. Although with East Turkestan, again, India had very close relations going back to the time when the Greeks were there in this area, and the Turkmens were there in this area. Huge numbers of Sanskrit texts have been discovered. The oldest written text manuscript in the world has been discovered in this region, and that's a Sanskrit. Very strange. Even Manchu in Xinjiang. It's a desert area, so it's easy for manuscripts to survive. Now, so East Turkestan has a very troubled relationship with China, and in China also there was civil war in the 19th century. East Turkestan rebelled, and they threw out the Chinese from there. And when Britain started helping China Manchu Empire recovered. One of the things, the first thing they did was they helped the Manchus suppress the internal revolt, and then they wanted the Manchus to come and reconquer East Pakistan. But there was a person called Yazid who had declared independence. And British did not want East Pakistan to be independent because it was scared Russia would so they helped one was that they didn't have any money left in their coffers, so Britain said we finance the army. So Britain financed the army of the Manchus, which was placed under the Han-Chinese, not the Manchus. And this was the first time the Han-Chinese were taking control of the army outside the Great War. And he came and he reconquered East Pakistan. Of course, he was already over there. Once they captured East Pakistan, East Pakistan, the southern part is called the Kunduz Mountains. South of the Kunduz Mountains, you have the Karakoram Mountains. And the Britain area is very barren. So the big mountains disappeared in different parts by about 100 and nobody lived there except some Tirtas nomads used to go there. There's a small place there called Shahidullah, which is north of the Karakoram Pass. The Maharaja of Kashmir, when Yaqub had the Pakistan, they also the Maharaja of Kashmir but then he also got there was nothing there, it's just a small street. South of the Kunduz Mountains, the British were very scared that in this gap between the Kunduz Mountains and the Karakoram Mountains, the Russians would come in. When the Russians came to this area, there was nobody who lived there, some nomads were Kyrgyz nomads. Now, Kyrgyz, as you know, they were linked to the Kyrgyzstan. And Kyrgyzstan was at that time part of the Russian Empire. So Russia said these are Kyrgyz people, therefore they are part of the Russian Empire. And Britain was adamant that Russia should not be Kyrgyz. So they showed the Chinese, they told the Chinese to come south and come out to the Karakoram Pass. And there are records available where they showed that the British representative would go across from Ladakh into Jharkhand, Khotan, and show them maps and say, look, this is our territory, please can you take it over? And the Chinese said, no, no, it's not our territory, there's some Mohammedans living there, we don't want to go in. And the British kept pushing them to take over this area. And finally, it was the Chinese reconquered East Pakistan in about 1775, 1780. 12 years later that they first sent a force down to take control of the Shanghai fort, and then further south into the Karakoram Pass where they came and put some stones together that this is part of China. And then they went back, they didn't come back. But the question is, why did the British claim this area? And for this to understand this, one has to understand the British psyche of the mountainous areas. In the British psyche, mountains is very dangerous because in the 1749, the first Afghan war, where the British first crossed the mountainous areas and replaced the ruler in Kabul as they had done in Bengal when they replaced the ruler in Mujafar. And here also they changed the ruler and they posted a small force in Kabul to keep that irritation. Within a year or so, the Pathans came back and they butchered all the English. About 40,000 English were killed in Kabul. And they let only one person come on a horse across the Khyber Pass. And it's a very famous picture from Google to find it was a forlorn person on a horse coming back. Replaced the ruler by a lady at their control. And that was the image that was there in the British people's mind. That if you cross the boundary, who they also changed the ruler and then you get butchered. Now, Afghanistan, at least, the British knew a little bit about it because Afghanistan was still part of Indians also knew about the place. In fact, after a defeat, some English women and children had been kidnapped by the Pathans, by the Afghans. So it was a businessman in Delhi who enabled the British to pay the ransom so that these people could be released. So in the British psyche, the mountains were dangerous. They dared not interfere because they knew nothing about it. Till as late as the late 19th century, all maps of this area, if you look at old maps, these are blank areas. And they wanted to know about it, so they would train Indians who knew Tibetan after the defeat. And they would give them little ribbon and gadgets for surveying land, teach them how to survey. And we had people like Sharat Chandra Das, who was from Bengal. He would be trained. There's a person called Pawan Singh, some Uttarakhand, who was trained to go into Tibet and translate information. The British relied upon the Nepalese. Nepal always had a person in Lhasa to get information about Lhasa. And there were always these guys who we don't know who lives there, what lives there. Of course, we don't have to people after us. But they and in fact, when the Jammu invaded Tibet in 1904, he invaded against British instructions. The British government he would and then kept saying you are not in rights. And Curzon, who was the governor of India, he was very powerful. This was very confident that they could be. So he told them husband to go ahead. So there was a crossover from Sikkim into a place called Chambazong in Tibet, just across the border. And he was there for almost 6 months, waiting before he could move forward. And it was only after one battle that took place where they were defeated, routed by the British, that Jammu then got the courage that he had marched across. Because they knew nothing about us. No Englishman had visited Lhasa for 100 years. 1881 was the second time, the first time an Englishman had entered Lhasa. And thereafter, 1904, Jammu has been moved to Lhasa. So they were always very scared of getting into this area. And they were quite happy to come back. And they were also scared, of course, of the Russian tension. And so they were quite happy to come back and let the Chinese pick up the next one. Because the Chinese government has always avoided cooperation because if you cheat, after 1860, the Manchus was suppressed the first time they suppressed the civil war in Japan. Thereafter, in China, the British government practically ruled China. One example of it is that after 1860 they imposed a very heavy penalty upon the Chinese. But the Chinese had no money to pay. How could they pay? So the British said, okay, we need to collect money from you on all customs duty. How could they collect customs duty? So an Englishman was appointed the head of the Chinese customs office, a chap called Robert Hart. He organized the Chinese customs office and started collecting money. Part of it was going to the Manchu government, but part of it was British government, British, the French, the Germans, and all other people who shared the money. And the English guy, Robert Hart, was head of the Chinese customs office in 1908. After 1908, another Englishman took over, and this office was controlled by Europeans up until 1949, when Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan, and the American who was the head of the Chinese customs office, and also fled with Chiang Kai-shek to Taiwan. So this is the kind of situation you got. The Chinese government was under the British control. So the British were confident that if Tibet and Xinjiang were part of China, they had no fear because they knew that Russians would be able to fight. The Chinese used Tibet and Xinjiang as a buffer. And popular opinion, of course, was young husband was going to be reprimanded. The nation would be overtaken, but because of the strong popular support, they didn't have the victory in Lhasa. They spared him and he was reprimanded. Another popular action was when they were taken after Beijing in 1860 and then started helping the Manchu dynasty stay in power. There was a lot of opinion criticism in London saying, why don't you annex China the way you annex India? And here there was a lot of debate, and the British government insisted that it was too dangerous to take over China because they felt that they spared enough forces and just conquered India. They could not spare enough troops to control China. And in China, the Russian fear was always far more immediate and far more imminent than in India or here. Remember, in India, the British had never defeated the French. I think a long time before the battle of around the battle of Basel, the 7-year war between the 18th century. So the French had already been defeated. So British were confident about controlling India, although in 1857 when our revolt took place, the British were again shaken in India. And a lot of British people were killed in northern India. In the case of China, again, in the case of China, the British were very confident in controlling China. So they had to take a cooperation of French, the Germans, the Japanese at times, and cooperate with the Russians so that the Chinese would try to so this was the thinking on Britain's policy towards China again shaking. So this was essentially the psyche of the Russian people and the fears that they had about it. In the case of China, again into the mountainous areas, and the British people were explorers, all in the late 19th century. It's interesting reading about how they went to get out from explore. The most difficult exploration was actually in the British had an idea that a river Tibet came down the Brahmaputra, actually a Tibetan river, but they didn't know how it came into the river because the river was going east and then suddenly it ended up here. So they took a lot of explorers, a lot of courage to go into this area. This area was quite disturbed and many explorers were killed. Some survived to write their notes, and this took place for the late 19th century. So it was again very fascinating to see how these villages must go into these areas of British. I kept very reports of salt, the people there. But they didn't know how that is how history is.
Thanks a lot. I mean, especially the first part we talked about the importance of the historic river and also looking at these traditional landscapes. It's good that we have historians and people from Indian knowledge system for now, I would like to invite us to share her thoughts and then we can right. I'll circle back and ask my other questions towards the end.
So we have taken all the
No, not at all. It's so fascinating. I think, as Abhishek said, having been part of the book, actually it is a very rich archival, a lot of archival elements
It's
of
good
the
that we have historians
and apart from that, I think, and this is a long diplomatic experience, going into, the kind of relations we often get with ours.
I'll circle back and ask my other questions.
Few things were very striking to me when I was reading the book. Imperial powers or conquests in a region, the rivalry and the competition. Very strikingly, the rich arcana, a lot of arcana elements of that. And it was neat because, we have always heard that China played the victim card and the century of humiliation. This is a very, very popular discourse among those scholars who have read about Tibet's relations with people in this region. And what was very interesting to note is how China became a part of the whole imperial reign in that region. So the first question, therefore, comes up from this the quote that is quite interesting. China, rich China, a lot of Afghan British and the Russians. As the British and the Russians, as you mentioned, were also engaged in trade, but Britain also helps China in building up and utilizing its army. So these are very interesting things to me. So the first question that I would like to know from you, how did the kind of relations took place that these countries China became part of the layout when China occupied Tibet in the 1950s? So that's the first question. The second question that I have is China, rich China question, which is a very contentious subject, not only in international politics but also as domestic politics as well. China, and I think there are two things, three dimensions as we know. One is the absolute sovereignty that the state wants to give, and at the other end, or the opposite side of the spectrum, China's minorities, because we are talking about the same kind of minorities here, who want self-determination to be maintained
bilingual policies in China in Xinjiang province, right? Very contentious. Some scholars would also call it the homogenizing nationalist projects which China has had in these regions, both the Tar region and also the Xinjiang province. So how could you draw some parallels, or can we draw some parallels, between these two regions and see how China has been, using certain kinds of nationalist projects as well as shared policies, for instance, the bilingual policy in the Xinjiang regions, and how the Uyghurs have responded to these kinds of Chinese policies vis-a-vis the Tibetan response to the Indo-Chinese implementation. There's also been some of transmigrated to the region for many, many decades now. So that's the second question. And the third part is not a question, but I was so fascinated by the kind of things that happened, the relations between the Tibetans, the Manchus, which you explained how China has very interesting ways of developed relations with the Mongols, and also the king of Nepal, the ruler of Nepal, and to a certain extent the Kashmir. So this is something I think I would like to know more about. I don't answer because I'm taking a lot of time. And the last but not the least, which is very contemporary, what is US's interest here? I mean, probably the recent developments that has been taking place, in terms of the Tibetan region and its autonomy. There might be some policies in the United States of America that drive this kind of interest. Recently, the state visiting some of the members from the United States, could you just tell us a bit more about that? Or maybe you can take a few questions, or if students might be interested. Yes.
Can I add just a question to your first one? I mean, regarding this geopolitical thing, because at the same time, 1950s was a very, very volatile thing going on in Korea. So exactly same time the Korean War was going on, and like, what was it like? What was the view in India at that time that this Chinese invasion in Korea, was it like the fight against like the colonial powers again coming back to Asia? I mean, how was it viewed in India at that time? If you know, like in the bureaucracy or like in the, I mean, basically the part of the same thing was Pahi asked me. Regarding this geopolitical, so at the same time, like it's a very, very volatile thing going on.
Really enjoyed the talk.
Exactly same time.
Actually fascinated by that part where you were talking about lots of cultural and religious connection or affiliation that we have between India and Tibet. Now, in international relations, we have this concept of soft power and hard power. Through these concepts, I want to reflect upon this contemporary situation in South Asia vis-a-vis India's foreign policy, what is being, say, Bangladesh or Nepal, and expansion of Chinese influence. My concern is whether or not India can come out of this trap of being a soft power to use these people-to-people connections or affiliation. These are the resources for diplomatic relations also. This could be. So how far you saw in contemporary times or in coming times are using these cultural or previous foreign connection for its diplomatic and China, but also protect interests, which is very different from its British, where British had control of it, but now China is following or not economically or not. Therefore, being a soft power, use these people connections or
Now, you see, quite right about the century of humiliation that China talks about, and the point that I have made in the book, that the world knows about the Great Game. The Great Game was the game between two big imperial powers, Britain and Russia. And China pretends that it was a victim of this imperial powers. To a certain extent it was, because the European powers were invading China from the sea. First the Portuguese, then the Spaniards, then the Dutch, then the English, French, the Japanese, they all came in, and they all extracted a concession. But none of them conquered China. They all extracted little areas where they would have trade boycotts, and they would trade most of the trade to great trade export trade from the Europeans to the other trade items in Russia. And China played a significant of humiliation starting from 18 after the first European war ended, and 1949 when the Communist Party seized power in China. That because of humiliation. But if you look at the century, you find that China was also an imperial power, playing its game. And China was a big power in this game, but China took advantage of the various of the British, Russian rivals, and the other rivals that were there in Europe. And this comes out quite clearly in the documents when you start reading them. You find the Chinese telling the British, well, we can't do this because the Russians don't want this, the Germans don't want this. And the British realized they could not fight, they had control over this government, but they had to still persuade it because the British always had assistance when it came to China. 1860 they attacked Beijing. It was not just the British force, it was the British French force and the various forces of the British. When the Boxer Revolution took place, Boxer Revolution took place in China, Beijing, and for about 55 days, the diplomatic area of Beijing, all Western diplomats were in the siege by a rebel group called the Axis. The British had to send an army across to liberate these people from the Atlantic invasion. And the army was an 8-country army, Russian, Japanese, and British. And I was reading an account given by an Indian soldier who had been by the British Revolution. He said that active in this whole force were not the British. They took on the most difficult challenges, the diplomatic area of Beijing. So the British realized that they needed a other European powers. And the Chinese took advantage of that, ensure that their independence made British government and as the British helped, even the Russians helped, the Chinese army that had taken over the east of this country, it ran short of food. So food grain came from Russia. So these weapons helped the Chinese recover their export and as I said, people for example persuading the Chinese to come down mountains towards take over that area so there was no gap left for the Chinese. So this century of humiliation that China talks about was partly a century of humiliation. And it's ironic enough that the Chinese, they say that India was a British dog of as it when they used for Chinese first Prime Minister. India, but after independence, how did India continue to have Mountbatten as government general? Army chiefs. So they say not really independent. Tactics of the British and then China ignores the fact that the Chinese government had very strong control by the British. And after the Communist Party took over in China in 1949, and it is not long because this party had been supported by Russia all through since its formation in 1921. He spent 2 years sitting with Stalin and talking about China's future. And the first thing he did when he got back, Russia, Stalin gave him clearance to attack Tibet. And then China ignores the fact now, and also gave military help to attack very strong because as part of the agreement that Russia had with Britain, Tibet was supposed to be part of Chinese empire. So you have that as a cease coming in. And when China attacked Tibet, the British accepted that immediately. In fact, at that time, Britain followed a policy that it is for India to decide. We have about this. Most countries will be given independence. But not only did they do that, they also told China. Now that is according to the history of the British advised the Americans, because the Americans were in 2 minds what to do. And this was, mind you, October 1950. So you have 3 months before that, in June 1950, a war had opened in Korea. And in Korea, the Western reaction was that communist forces have attacked from the north or south, and we cannot tolerate this. So they got our UN force to go inside there, and force. The Korean war had started. So America was already looking at a world through the Cold War scenario, that you have these two communist forces and the against the communist forces. And so the question rises, why didn't America look at Tibet also through the same prism? And here the point comes that America wanted and very clear Tibet. And the advice that came in from Britain was stay away, let India decide. What did India do? So they got India's approach, and this is where the very war comes in. India's approach in this kind was two. America was three issues that was there at the top of the board and Mr. Nehru's report. One was that he presumed that the Communist Party in China was the driving force of Asian resurgence. And India and China together be the united imperialism. They are little realizing that let China stay more independent because self and India will stay. But nevertheless, Nehru felt that this was a digression, and perhaps he also wanted to have the one was a very conservative place, and the writing of Nehru was a very important nation. So he was, he felt that India and China have to move together. That was one. China was the Korean War. Nehru felt that there was a possibility of and it was important for India to mediate action. India mediated in the Korean War. Nehru wanted to assure his partiality right now by not opposing China to Tibet. In fact, the American ambassador met Prime Minister Nehru and offered, said, what can I do? Can I help you? So Nehru told him that China has to, no, don't interfere, because if you come in and start interfering, then it will only validate China as a person. China as a person, imperial powers of interfering India. All these factors of Korean War are coming in, and Nehru kept saying that if we don't, if we oppose China today, then there's a possibility of invasion. So these two factors shaped his policy towards China. In the process, the US did not win entirely agree with the situation. And as you know, soon after that, the US kept taking the power in affairs, and in 1957, President Eisenhower cleared CIA to start fighting Tibetan rebels. And India refused to allow the CIA to go to Sinha. So they set up their base in Dhaka in India. And from there, they started to train Tibetans. They gave money to Tibetans. And that's why Tibetan revolt became serious. And America and China incidentally protested India, but not Pakistan. Because China had by this time started understanding the geopolitics was so clear, and they realized that it was Pakistan which was opposed to India, and even though Pakistan had by this time joined the Western alliances, it was part of Centro, Baghdad, whatever it was, there China had already joined the Western India did not. So although India was not aligned country, it was not in the US camp. Pakistan was, China felt closer to Pakistan than India, primarily because of the India aspect. Because China, because of the linkages that has with geopolitics, China always feared that India would interfere, and that fear of China was kind of mitigated when the India gave him. The first thing that happened was that the Islamic was given a lot of honor. That is the kind of reception we got in India. So, all this affected Chinese thinking about India. Because the US policy has said the US kept then by this time the Sino-Soviets and the idea with the Americans got totally aside those states in China and Russia, and they even fought some border wars. Slowly American thinkers started turning towards was getting from the Americans about Mr. And that continued until the current democratic in China, where again the US has got interested. So if you look at the US acts on Tibet, the first act was passed in 2011. It was called the Tibet Policy Act. And that was essentially just to talk about water resources that they should be preserved. Then so in 2011, sometime around that time, the Americans passed another act in which they said that by this time the situations had started deteriorating in China and the US. And so one of the acts passed by the US was said that the Dalai Lama, his succession is a religious matter and China should not interfere with it. And in 2002 there was an act in which they said that every Chinese official is found to be involved in nominating a successor to the Dalai Lama. That official will face sanctions. So the official has accounts in overseas, they don't get US visa. So it was a personal sanction on the Chinese individual. Then they said that the US should allow to open a consulate in Lhasa. And if China does not allow Tibet to open a consulate in Lhasa, the US will not allow any consulate to China to be open in Lhasa. China law still remains in force. And then in 2024, they have passed this act, the Resolve Tibet Act, or the, it's called the resolution of the Chinese to the Tibet dispute. So this resolution act says that the status of Tibet remains to be decided. The dispute conflict between Tibet and China remains to be resolved. And this resolution should take place under international law. And then of course there's another thing about Chinese propaganda, etc. All that still remains. But unfortunately, when the president was invited to sign, he signed the bill. But he also made a statement saying that the US recognizes so in a way negating what the act did, I don't appreciate China. But also it's buying time. But the act remains the act. So the act still says that Tibetan people have the right of self-determination. Now we come to this point that you raised about autonomy and suzerainty, sovereignty, that's suzerainty and sovereignty, the British used to make a big deal about regarding suzerainty and sovereignty. And even India made a big thing about 1950. A lot of our correspondence that we have with we try to make a distinction in which we say that China has suzerainty over Tibet, not sovereignty. Suzerainty is an imperial term. It was used for the Ottoman Empire. The British used it, we also used it. And we said that suzerainty means that Tibet has autonomy. But autonomy, you must remember, is not internationally recognized. What is there in the West Indian system is that a state is sovereign. And as a sovereign state, it has a lot of our corresponding and its internal matters are resolved. No other the government can interfere in except under the Chapter 7 of the military invasion, which of course has taken place. So for all practical purposes, the internal matters of countries, so whether, for example, the argument that we are making about Article 370, there's an internal matter of India. Article 370 was an armed constitution, we have revoked it. Internal matter is not for any other country to come in and tell us that there is an Article 370 or 370. Sovereign state, China has a similar situation that if the internal matter of China, then what kind of autonomy they get to Tibet is for China's legal. The important thing is that foreign affairs is not part of the Tibetan mandate. And if foreign affairs is not part of the Tibetan mandate, then any foreign power has to be in partnership with the Tibetan government. So the kind of dichotomy that the British were able to maintain in the Sinha unit of 1940s, that dichotomy can no longer be carried out now because you don't have that kind of matter. The US is a big power can occasionally do that. You can see that China was doing some European Union at one level as a common foreign policy. At the same time, each of the member states has their foreign policy. So you have this dichotomy coming in there also, but nobody says that the members of the European Union are not the sovereign states. They are sovereign and they use a lot of damage in the sovereign policy. So these are these are concepts that are, the case of self-determination. Self-determination, the concept is there in the and the self-determination in the it says the individual peoples have the right to self-determination. And so any given member was given a chance to recognize that. But the very next question soon after that says that however, the territorial sovereignty of a state must be respected. Now this actually goes to right of self-determination. So right of self-determination is against your own government. So if the territorial sovereignty of a country and the territorial they have to be respected the whole of self-determination. But that is what it says. So European countries, because they have more reached position, they are confident about their own, perhaps no longer with all this annihilation taking place now, but certainly before this limitation crisis, they were quite free to let people move in, move out. They were quite confident of the security, the internal security. Britain could afford to have a plebiscite in Scotland. As the situation in Europe changes, and they are and should also may involve them. India certainly cannot take this stand of our own diversities and of our own fact that we have our own political structures still in Europe as we come to terms with the degree of autonomy that a state should have. So this concept of whether Tibet has a right of self-determination, the US has maintained it, but I don't think any other country has explicitly made a statement of that. The issue of the soft power, you're quite right, Sam, that India has soft power, and that is what links India to one hand to the but unless India has one hard power, which means military power, and the other hard power is economic power, the soft power is of little meaning. I'll give an example. When you go to Southeast Asia, you find so many temples and structures built. Many of them were built by Indian architects. When sailed down to East Cambodia, to Vietnam, to Thailand, and designed and shaped and built these places. So at that time, India had that capacity to give assistance to these countries, to build these structures that survive till today. But it is China that has built this. So if a country wants an airport to be built, you want the money, you want the capacity to build it. China comes and fixes it. So you want a huge building made, you want a port made, call up China, they will find it. You want a new building made, they make the rail bridge from China all the way down to Singapore. Our capacity is there. Despite the fact that we are one of the oldest universities in the world, we have to build the railway line. But that time, primarily because of our lack of capacity and also lack of flexibility in our system. Right? So we have to acquire that capacity to be able to exercise that soft power and take advantage of it. Because unless you have economic power, China will just loan $50 billion to a bunch of countries in Africa. For us to take out $50 billion, we need some effort. The country that we have assisted most of Afghanistan and Bhutan. But of course, Bhutan is but they are certainly much better off today than we were, let us say, 20 years. So we have to acquire still we can go on from the kind of exercise that perhaps the capacity and manufacturing capacity and the capacity to send goods. If a country wants a huge amount of items to be sent, we can barely meet our own market for various things. So we have to have the capacity so we can cope with this natural. relationship that China has with Tibet? How much trust does China have in the Tibetan people, and how confident does it feel about its own people? If China is uncertain about its position in Tibet, then it will not have a position. I mentioned about these villages that China has placed along the border. Now, what are these villages being built for? India has no intention to invade Tibet. No political party in India dreams of invading Tibet. They are busy enough with our own matters. And China knows that. And yet is building all these China and villages. So that's what I like to make of this war of villages that China is making. To the Berlin. Those of you who have visited Berlin at that time, you know the Berlin Wall was about keeping the West Germans out of Berlin. It was meant to keep the East Germans inside. I mentioned about the West Germans had to go to the Berlin Wall and paint for what and if India has German parts, way back then, no backup party in India. On the East German side, you could go anywhere, they were busy enough with their own. There were dogs and there were all kinds of parts. And yet they were keeping what they had. And then people would try and negotiate, they would go to the China. So the wall was not a building to keep West Germans out of East Germans in at that time. Similarly, the villages around the border, they were not meant to keep India out. They are meant to keep the Tibetans out. Because Tibetans were fleeing from Tibet earlier, as if it was 2008 or so. And then China clamped down because they realized that ideas in and out of India or from Nepal, then there would be again further insurgency. So there would be ideas to try and people in Tibet. Last question that in both Xinjiang or China for Xinjiang and in Tibet, China has now followed this policy of sensitization of the children. So in Tibet, almost 2/3 of the children, and then China have been taken to the schools. Even areas of peace and children are being taken to every schools where whether only Chinese, not Tibet. It's the same story in where they are in camps which they call education camps. Concentration camps where people are taken away from their parents and they are being brought up as Chinese and learning Mandarin away from their own language. But in both cases, the cultural roots are very strong. And they are not able to take that. In China, for example, in Tibet, no Tibetan can take a photograph of Dalai Lama in his airlines. But that shows the kind of lack of confidence that China has in its own system. Why should it feel so scared that a photograph is considered to be incendiary or nature? So in all these cases, and they are should Kailash Mansoor China is scared of India because the only two people, not the Indians, will start traveling. And then you will have again ideas going in. China is about any kind of movement of Tibetans going into Tibetans, for example, if they want to travel out from Tibet, they are given a passport only when they have become citizens. Become too old, then they defect or go away. And they can travel out only when they form a group. And groups allow to travel to 5 or 6 places, and one of them occasionally they are permitted to come to India. So if some Tibetan wants to meet a relative who has stayed in India, that's the only way they can come and meet them. Tibetan India the senior citizen, any kind of thing, can perhaps Tibetan still be in the street. Tibetans, for example, it's not easy to get that thing, but that is how they can do that. So in this situation, trade, which requires a lot of interaction of people traveling, they can't come in because they're scared of opening up. And on the McMahon line, well, it's quite possible. The McMahon line was a very thick line drawn across. The principle was the watershed. One never had the time to sit down and do a linear border. Perhaps before 1950, India wasn't even interested. I mean, there was a few people and just as somebody in Europe, after the European Union was formed, And if you today you drive from Germany to France, I don't even know when you cross the border. But 80 years ago, you had the Maginot Line and arms were fitted against each other. So once the border becomes peaceful and there is trust among people on both sides, whether there is a border, there is no border. It was a situation between India and Tibet before 1950, or before 1959, because actually what happened was in 1950, around 51, the Chinese forces entered Lhasa. They had no idea of Tibet. They had no idea where the border was. They had no clue what was going on. So they would take the help of the Tibetans to come and cover the Indian side, and then the Tibetans would say, no, this is the border, this is the border, this is the and that is how they acquired the understanding. And as their position became stronger, they became more assertive. And then they started publishing maps showing paths. Side chain was very important for them because from Xinjiang to Tibet, the earlier trade route used to be there, Ladakh was definitely an ideal control. So they made a new road further the east of Ladakh through a very relatively, in fact, was never used. So they made a road there and they took actually Russian engineers to make that road so that troops could move and people could move from Xinjiang to Tibet. Because the route from Lhasa eastwards into Xinjiang into this Sichuan area. Earlier, you have to cross 3 or 4 of those major rivers. That was very difficult. So they made the Chinese railway was something like reaching Lhasa railway line. It doesn't come across this area because it's still a very difficult area to take roads in. And it is only now I think that they are making this railway line through that area. But then of course Chinese have tremendous capacity to make railways and changes. But despite all that, the terrain is so difficult that so that is how cycling became very already answered.
Yeah, we can have your
Sir, sir, so sir, my question was about the recent Belt and Road initiative of China that China is pretty aggressive with its infrastructure and everything. So, like, what does the Belt and Road initiative lie with the future of Tibet? That is, because it is very seriously connected with the Tibet, because Tibet is again the area that is Tibet is connected with Nepal, and then there is Afghanistan, and then it leads up to Central Asia. So, how, like, what does the future lie for Tibet with the recent development with the BR? My question was about the recent Belt and Road initiative of China that China is pretty aggressive with its infrastructure and everything. So, like, what does the Belt and Road initiative lie with the future of Tibet? Because it is very seriously connected with the Tibet, because Tibet is again the area that is Tibet is connected with Nepal, and then there is Afghanistan, and then it leads up to Central Asia. Like, what does the future lie for Tibet with the recent development of the BR? My question was about the Belt and Road initiative in China that China is pretty aggressive with its infrastructure. Like, what does the Belt and Road initiative lie with the future of because it is very seriously connected with the Tibet, because Tibet is again the area that Tibet is connected with
things that you must understand about China is that Chinese language script. Chinese language is monosyllabic. So you make a cobweb and then you give it a pronunciation, and then you have new words created through those combinations. But there is no intrinsic pronunciation to that. So if I draw a fish, I'll call it fish, you'll call it fish, you'll call it something else, possum or whatever. So the script is what keeps the Chinese language together, Chinese speaking people together. But the pronunciation is different. Hong Kong has Cantonese, where you won't understand a word of what is Chinese language. This script is possible to write a foreign name, or you have to look at the nearest syllable in Chinese, and then use that for writing. So you have to be taken into a Chinese word, and then otherwise, if I write my name Dilip, there's no way of writing it. So what do? Then you look for the nearest Chinese syllable, and then you convert the Dilip into something else. So you can. So by definition, any foreign name is sinicized before it is written, before it can be written in Chinese. But in addition to that, the Chinese also keep looking at use different ways to try and ensure. For example, the Manchus, when they were in China, they wrote foreign names in the Manchus. They did not use China, they didn't sinicize those names. Manchus was alphabetical. Again, they were Tibetans. To Chinese. So, and then you convert this is a problem that the Chinese script has. So by definition, if they were to draw the map of Arunachal and write down names, because there's no way you can write with the word Arunachal change. So you have that issue with the Chinese script. And the Chinese, of course, very fond of it because they feel that the moment you give a Chinese name to it, then they can insert their name on that place. For example, they are given a Chinese name to Chinggis Khan, a Chinese name to Kublai Khan, and they say they're Chinese. Their name is not Chinggis Khan. If you want to go to China and say, so Chinggis Khan, Chinggis Khan. And they show a map for this is the proper choose whatever the Chinese name was. By definition, it was always called a map of it's impossible to talk about them. Early days when India China negotiations were taking place soon after the Chinese invasion, even before that. The Chinese would come and say, this is the name of the place. And we were not sure what name they were talking about. Because we were not sure that it was Chengdu, Chengdu, this, that. And so it is only now that the Chinese have started learning English and they have started recognizing that there is a problem and now for today they have to use Western names. All the Chinese, for example, who are in Taiwan, they take English restrictions. They also take up a Western name. So that is easy for us to understand, right? And foreign names are then written in Roman script so that it is easy for others to recognize. So this is the issue with name change. On the BRI, the BRI's essential role is to unite China to its trading partners. China has two interests in trade. One is to export its products to countries. China is the world's largest exporter of products. And the other is to export raw materials. China is desperately short of raw materials. So wherever there are raw materials available, it is developing those mines and developing transport links to China. So the BRI's primary purpose is this. Now you're quite right in the case of Tibet also, they are developing links because that is the most important way of ensuring that Tibet is a part of China. As I mentioned, before 1950, in fact till 1959 or so, China back, a lot of Chinese wanted to use Tibet through India. In fact, the Chinese general who was commanding the army that invaded Lhasa, he traveled through India in July 1951. After the agreement was signed in May 1951 between Tibet and China, and the Chinese were confident that Tibet somehow would accept the Chinese, and the Chinese said, if you don't accept it, like they leave you the program. From there he went by land through Indian territory into Lhasa. And the Chinese army moved from Chengdu to Lhasa after that, September 1951. 1991. So till September 1991, for practical purposes, the Chinese army moved in. And incidentally, one of the other reports that they keep citing is that when the Chinese army moved in, there was a shortage of food. So the Chinese asked India to send rice. India sent its own rice first, and later the Chinese then compensated and gave them rice. So we sent it to the Chinese army in 1951. And the Chinese army then almost constantly came back and we stopped 2 or 3 years we sent. The BRI is part of that, and essentially meant to ensure Chinese trade with countries. But for infrastructure development is a thing of great importance for developing countries. One of the reasons for that is, and that you have to go down to the World Bank. You see, after the Second World War, the World Bank was set up to help countries rebuild their infrastructure. So the World Bank first helped European countries rebuild after the Second World War, and then the World Bank started helping other countries. So for example, India, the Pakistan and Bangladesh and other times for finance by the World Bank. But then towards the 1990s or so, when environmental factors became the World Bank started going back on infrastructure projects. They felt that for development you need money in the social sector, so education and health were more emphasized by the World Bank than infrastructure like dams and bridges and roads. So there was a big vacuum for developing countries and how to get finance for these infrastructure projects. So the BRI was offered by China. They jumped at it because China was doing dams for them, building pipelines for them, roads for them, bridges for them. The World Bank was not. And for India also, there are many people in India who think that India also needs a lot of infrastructure development. Also joined the BRI, but they refused it. So the BRI has that important appeal. Now, of course, because the debt trap that countries find themselves in, because the BRI is built by the Chinese companies built it, but even the workers are the BRI was offered by China. Even we discovered some of the contracts we had given to Chinese companies to build roads in the Himalayas. The workers were Chinese and they took business visas to World Bank and operate the machines into the Ministry of Land. India very strong. India also Chinese. Other countries like Pakistan, for example, has been accepted. But because that cost is very high, the debt burden of these countries becomes very high. And that shows because the BRI was built by the Resolve Tibet Act countries. Now, the US delegation visited. The US delegation is Shala. Technically, what the visitors they have come earlier also. The US has a Tibetan envoy and leads the Tibetan matter. She is part of the US State Department. She deals with human rights and security issues. And she's also designated as point person to deal with Tibetans. She had visited earlier. But this visit was important for 2 reasons. One is they went to Dharamshala. They called on the a few weeks. The US delegation, Dharamshala was to go to the US. So the Congress delegation could easily have it to Dalai Lama in the US. But they obviously wanted to make a point by going to Dharamshala and calling on the Dalai Lama there. And this coming so soon before, just after the act had been passed by the Congress, but not yet signed by the President. And the other important thing about this delegation visit is that the delegation, when it came to Delhi, called on both the Prime Minister and the President, which was a kind of a signal that India is not comfortable with India. The US delegation was equal to the Dalai Lama knowing full well that the Americans would not respond directly. The Chinese would respond very angrily to this. As they did, they protested. And they have protested every time anybody has met, even Dalai Lama in the US, met various places, and every time we met somebody, Chinese would protest. So that's the significance of this delegation visit. They said in practical terms, there has been no change in US policy. They still recognize Tibet as a part of China. It was a kind of a signal that India is not comfortable with India. Now the geopolitical situation, as I mentioned, Tibet has gained in importance because of the US-China. arrival and the competition that has started, and the fear that America now has that China, because of its rise, is now a challenge, a threat to American supremacy. So this has helped Tibet. And we have to, we are caught in the middle of it all. This Tibet was the neighbor. And as I said, the problem that we face is that no matter how hard we try to improve relations with China, whether through trade or through international cooperation, as long as Tibetan refugees are in India, China will be suspicious. And India has to deal with that reality, which is why, although we have been having talks with China on the what we call the border talks, the line of control talks, and we have 18 months or since 1993, when we first had a broad agreement with China, we have had very little progress. People say that some lines have been agreed upon, but no maps have actually been published by the two sides together for China public. Even the most basic issue that to maintain peace and tranquility on the border, one of the agreements is that which patrols take place, patrols do not take weapons with them. They will be unarmed. But when Galwan happened, earlier whenever the patrols were on the area, both sides would claim it. And the patrols met, they would only sit down on a coffee and divide. Mindful that both sides claim that some lines have been. But in Galwan, when the Indian troops were patrolling, the Chinese turned up with clubs surrounded by men on the wire. And that was a very brutal thing because it killed the enemy very, very quickly and could take him by surprise. And thereafter things have never been. We decided that we had to have positions to protect our territory, because for the Chinese advantage that they had, there was this say of Chinese base here and Indian base here, both sides were going to patrol on one area. The Chinese now moved forward and set up bases in the area that was patrolled earlier by the Indian army also. But then when they used force there to kill army, they did a lot of bad and that continues. And thereafter,
Right. I think we still have unassociated. We want more. I know for a fact that our discussant has to very interesting questions asked there. We just cannot get the opportunity to broach even you mentioned very, very interesting one thing which we can talk about later. Yeah. So thank you everyone for turning out in these lovely audience. Thanks to our online viewers who have also enthusiastically engaged with this event, and thank you especially our ambassador. And we are truly honored, and it is an eye-opening thing as your introduction that our knowledge and interest or knowledge in was in inverse proportion. We hope that a little bit of that has been addressed, and we are slightly more proportional and asymmetrical now, and not asymmetrical, symmetrical now. Okay, thank you so much. I hope all of you have had tea before we started. So thank you very much. We will stop here. Yes.